Hi, I'm Eugene Obah, the host of Fit to Speak, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to discuss the podcast that was recently done by Dateline NBC on missing broadcast media professional and University of Maryland alum Terrence Woods, who's been missing since 2018. Now, the Dateline podcast is part of their series of podcasts that they have been doing on missing persons cases, other cases that have not really been highlighted that really deserve another look. And for those of you who haven't heard podcast quite yet, we'll have a link in the description below so that you can definitely judge for yourself as to what Dateline NBC has done. Now, as far as my take on what Dateline NBC have done in this, and I will note that this is definitely the first, probably among the first national coverage that has been provided since our coverage has aired. And we have been, for those of you who have been following us for a while, we have been pretty heavy on this case. And you can check out all of the coverage that we have right here on this YouTube channel, and we'll have links to our coverage in the description below. I will preface what I'm about to say here about the podcast that Dateline did by saying that I believe it was a fairly reported podcast. I thought that they did a very good job really laying out much of the reporting, much of the facts that surround this case, the circumstances, a lot of the circumstances that surround Terrence's disappearance. I thought that the people that they brought on, especially Bethany Swain, who was a professor over at the University of Maryland at the time that Terrence was a student at Maryland, I thought that that was absolutely fantastic. I thought they really showed Terrence's character, his work ethic, his really his overall appeal. And I think that was very, very important to emphasize because in talking with Terrence's father, Terrence Woods Sr., it seemed that a lot of the coverage from so many other places, it didn't really emphasize some of those aspects. So to see Bethany Swain and others really vouch for Terrence in the way that they did, was just incredible to see. I've met Bethany Swain at many past events over at the University of Maryland. She is definitely the real deal, and I think would be a great character witness, in my opinion, as well as the person from the UK. I think they would make great character witnesses about Terrence if it ever came down to being in a court of law. I credit Dateline for focusing in the podcast on those aspects of Terrence. I thought that that was really wonderful. But I will say that one of the big things that was missed, I think there were two big things that were missed in the podcast. The first big thing was that the independent investigation that is being done right now by the hosts of Crime Redefined, Mehul Anjaria and Dion Mitchell, that was not mentioned at all in the podcast that Dateline put out just recently. And I found that to be a huge, huge missed opportunity. That was a very much missed opportunity by Dateline in not mentioning, even not even giving a passing mention to the independent investigation. And the reason I say that is because, and I've said this to a lot of people, we here at Common Sense and the folks behind Crime Redefined, we have been trying to really move the needle on this case. We really have been trying to advance the ball here behind the scenes in terms of trying to get a resolution for Terrence's family. And I believe that the investigation the investigation into the case, the independent investigation, was worth mentioning. I mean, there was a lot of mention about the investigation that was done by the Idaho County Sheriff's Office, which I'll get to some stuff about that in just a second. But the fact is that the independent investigation was not mentioned, and I know for a fact that the independent investigation, was mentioned to Dateline's producers. That was mentioned to NBC. So nobody can say to me that, oh, they didn't know about it, or whatever the case may be. I know for a fact. I was, kind of sort of, on the outside looking in on some of the preliminary conversations that led up to the podcast. I know for a fact that that independent investigation was mentioned. So the fact that it wasn't, that's kind of a pity. But what I hope that people will do is that if you find it in your financial resources or what have you, I know that times are tough, but I know that both Mehul and Dion will greatly appreciate anybody who at least gives the independent investigation a look. And that independent investigation is on the GoFundMe page. You can see all of the details on there. So I want people to go to gofundme.com/investigating the disappearance of Terrence Woods. The name of the investigation is Investigating the Disappearance of Terrence Woods. We have a link in the description below. Definitely donate, share, whatever you've got to do, because I know that this investigation, the independent investigation, this is going to be, I believe, the only way that we will even get any level of answers as it pertains to this case. And had that investigation been mentioned, I believe that that would have helped spur on even greater interest in terms of trying to solve this case. So again, I was disappointed that that was not mentioned, but here we are at Common Sense, again, as we have done earlier this year, mentioning the independent investigation. So investigating the disappearance of Terrence Woods. Look it up on GoFundMe. The link is in the description below. And yes, the ask is big. 40K is a big ask. But as Mehul and Dion said on this program, this can be solved even before getting to the $40,000. There's a lot of things that have to be done. Forensics. There has to be some interviews that have to be done. There has to be looking at the camera, looking at the laptop, looking at things that really have not been looked at. So I would really encourage people to go to the GoFundMe page, check that stuff out, and really make sure that we can do what we can to solve this case for Mr. Woods and his family. So that was the one big thing that was missed. The second thing that was also, in my opinion, missed was, and we talked about this in the second part of the interview with Terrence's father earlier this year on Fit to Speak from the Archives, but there was, according to Mr. Woods, there was a phone call. There was a Zoom call that was done. Now, Simon G in the podcast, they talked about Simon G in the podcast because he was the head of production. Well, not so much the head of production, but he was the producer on site the day that Terrence disappeared. And at a minimum, Raw TV, the production company, are responsible for anything that goes on that set. Now, the episode, as noted by Dateline, it never aired. It never aired. Simon, again, for me, it goes back to this. At a minimum, the production company and, I believe Simon, I think, are more likely than not, are responsible for anything that happens on that set, and I think have some stuff to answer to, in my judgment at least, in terms of this case. Now, Dateline try to reach out to Simon, They did not hear back from him. We at Common Sense, we could not confirm the authenticity of some of the social media accounts that bear his name. Um, but the fact that Dateline did not hear back from Simon, that's also very curious in and of itself. Now, going back to this Zoom call that Terrence Woods Sr. said that he had with another person who claims that Simon knows, apparently knows what happened or where Terrence is, but wants um, something of like $100,000 to provide said information. That part of it was also missing. I believe that that also warranted some level of mention by NBC. That warranted some level. We mentioned this in the special that we did um, back earlier in the year. Now we invited one person that was alleged to be on the call that Mr. Woods claimed to be says was on the call. We invited this person to come on the program to either confirm the findings of Mr. Woods or deny the findings of Mr. Woods. This person did not get back, actually did get back to us, but wouldn't let us use their statement. And again, in my judgment, that is curious in and of itself. And I go into much of the detail on the show earlier this year. But just to give the kind of the Cliff Notes version, if I claim to be Terrence's friend, right? If I claim to be Terrence's friend and I knew information that could lead to him being found or whatever, or if I know what happened to him, then I would be shouting from the rooftops. I would be shouting from the rooftops as to what happened or where he is, that sort of thing. That's if you truly call yourself a friend. So there's a lot of things that really throughout this case, and especially the narrative that has been put out. Raw TV put out the same canned statement that they gave me and gave other members of the media about hoping that Terrence will be found and that sort of thing. And yes, I'm sure that they hope that Terrence will be found. But for them to be giving the same canned statement that they gave me, to give Dateline the same canned statement that they gave me and gave other members of the media, um, again, I just don't know. It's not. Um, Let me back up for a second. It just does not seem to me that the production company really gets the gravity of what this situation is. Um, there are still 12 people from the production who we have not heard from. And the worst thing is that the Idaho County Sheriff's Office, they are still claiming that this is an open investigation, that this is an active investigation, that this is all, open and whatever. But they won't close the case. Now, one thing that was very interesting is that the former sheriff, Doug Giddings, says that he wishes that they would provide the files of the case. He says that in the podcast. So whether or not that is actually going to happen, that remains to be seen. And I think that's something that needed to have happened long ago. Now, we reached out to the current sheriff twice. Once late last year during our special, and once again earlier this year, the current sheriff, Doug Ulmer. And we never heard back. Twice we reached out to the sheriff's office directly, never heard back from them. So there seems to be a little bit of stonewalling here in this. And the thing I will say, in listening to the to Dateline's podcast, that I did find very, very curious is that the woman that was doing transport, the woman that was doing transport for the production, the former sheriff knows. The former sheriff knows. And he said in the podcast that he has known her for a long time and that he had no reason to dismiss her account or to doubt her account that Terrence allegedly, according to her and to some of the crew that was on site, that he ran down a cliff, ran down like a hare, that sort of thing. It makes me wonder, at first listen, it makes me wonder if there is any sort of collusion going on here. Maybe, maybe I'm kind of, some people can say maybe I'm putting my tinfoil hat on here, but I don't think it's far-fetched to think that there may be some little nefarious, not I shouldn't say nefarious, but that's the wrong word. But I don't know if there's maybe some collusion going on. I don't know. But what I do know is that we really need to find answers to this case. We really need to still get answers here. And what's also been clear is that it is up to us, and especially us as not just as independent content creators, but also to those amateur sleuths and true crime enthusiasts to come together and really spread the information, really spread what is unknown about this case. We really need to make certain that the public know about what is going on here in this case, because Terrence has to be found. Dead or alive, we have to find him. And again, I just think that in terms of moving the needle in this, that I just think that there were some missed opportunities by NBC in terms of really trying to help advance the narrative. Again, I think it was fairly reported. I think, you know, I think in totality, stuff was fairly reported, but I just think on those 2 points, especially just looking at this stuff here that they did not mention, the independent investigation, um, that was just a missed opportunity. But I would encourage anybody to go to the GoFundMe page in the description below in the investigating the disappearance of Terrence Woods. Go there, learn more about the investigation that Mehul Anjaria and Dion Mitchell are doing. I have every bit of confidence. I have every bit of confidence that both Mehul and Dion will be able to find the answers that Terrence Woods Sr. and his family so desperately need. You can be the difference maker in this case. So let us go out there, let us make the difference, because I think together we can make a real impact. Thank you so much for watching. We will not be silenced.